"72-year-old Dominique Pelicot has been sentenced to 20 years in prison after being found guilty of orchestrating the drugging and repeated rape of his wife Gisele Pelicot in a case that has shocked France and sparked widespread debate about the country's sexual violence laws. The case, involving 51 defendants, has been widely publicized for its horrific details and has brought attention to the urgent need for legal reform in France's handling of sexual consent. In a French courtroom on Thursday, Pelicot was handed the maximum sentence of 20 years for his role in the abuse, which spanned nearly a decade. Now 72, Gisele Pelicot bravely waived her right to anonymity during the trial, demanding that disturbing videos of her abuse filmed by her former husband be shown in the court. These videos provided damning evidence of the systemic abuse she endured at the hands of her husband, who drugged her repeatedly, rendering her unconscious, and offered her up for sex to dozens of strangers. Dominique Pelicot's abuse of his wife began in early 2010s when he started drugging her food and drinks with powerful tranquilizers. These substances caused her to lose consciousness for hours at a time. Gisele, who initially suspected she was suffering from Alzheimer's or a brain tumor, had no idea that her husband was drugging her until the horrifying truth came to light. While unconscious, Gisele was sexually assaulted by men who her husband met online and invited to their home. Pelicot filmed the assaults, creating a chilling archive of over 20,000 photos and videos, which were discovered by the police when he was arrested for attempting to take inappropriate photographs of women in a supermarket in 2020. The discovery led to the revelation of a decade-long pattern of abuse that had been carefully concealed from Gisele. Gisele Pelicot, who had been left in the dark about the true nature of her husband's actions, now understood the reason behind her memory lapses and the constant sense of fear she had been experiencing. She later testified in court that she had no recollection of many of the traumatic incidents and had once feared she was losing her mind. On Thursday, the court in Avignon found Dominique Pelicot guilty of drugging and raping his wife and sentenced him to 20 years in prison. Prosecutors had requested the maximum sentence, citing the severity of the abuse and the prolonged nature of the crimes. In addition to Pelicot, 47 of the 51 men involved in the sexual assaults were found guilty of rape, with 2 convicted of attempted rape and 2 others found guilty of sexual assault. The remaining defendants were either acquitted or given lesser sentences, though the convictions were seen as a significant legal victory for Gisele and all survivors of sexual violence. The defendants included men from various walks of life, such as lorry drivers, soldiers, firefighters, security guards, and farmers. The youngest defendant was just 22 years old when he first participated in the abuse, while the oldest was in his early 70s. Some of these men claimed that they believed the sexual acts were consensual, orchestrated as part of a sexual game by the couple. However, the court rejected these defenses, underscoring that Gisele was unconscious during the assaults and therefore unable to consent. Gisele's children, namely David, Caroline, and Florian, were present in the courtroom to hear the verdicts. They have been vocal in their support for their mother and have spoken out publicly against their father's actions. The siblings, who rejected their father's pleas for forgiveness, expressed their anger and grief over the abuse their mother endured for decades. Throughout the trial, Gisele Pelicot exhibited extraordinary courage. She faced her abusers directly in the courtroom, rejecting the notion that she had been a willing participant in the abuse. She testified, and I quote, "I have decided not to be ashamed. I have done nothing wrong. They are the ones who must be ashamed." Her decision to waive her anonymity was a pivotal moment in the case, allowing her to speak openly about her ordeal in front of the public. In a statement made during the trial, Gisele said, "This is not just my battle, but that of all rape victims." Her words resonated with women's rights groups and activists who hailed her bravery and determination to see justice done despite the immense personal trauma she had experienced. Gisele has stated that her goal throughout the trial was to help other victims of sexual abuse find the courage to come forward and seek justice. She has rejected the idea that her actions were an act of bravery, instead framing it as a necessary fight for justice. In court, she said, "It's not courage, it's a determination to change things. It's about fighting for the rights of others who suffer in silence." The case has provoked intense discussions about the nature of sexual violence and the need for reform in France's legal system. Current French law does not explicitly state that sexual activity must be consensual, leading to calls for changes to better define and protect the concept of consent in sexual assault cases. Legal experts have argued that this gap has allowed for too many cases to fall through the cracks, with some defendants, like those involved in this case, being able to argue that they believed that the sex was consensual. The Pelicot case has also sparked protests and rallies in support of Gisele and other survivors of sexual violence. Women's rights groups are calling for a re-evaluation of how France's courts handle cases of rape and sexual assault, and many believe that this trial could be a catalyst for the much-needed overhaul of the country's rape laws. For Gisele Pelicot, the journey towards healing is just beginning. While the convictions and the 20-year sentence handed down to her ex-husband offer some measure of justice, the scars of abuse will not easily fade. Gisele has expressed her hope that the case will serve as a turning point not only for herself but for all victims of sexual violence who struggle to find justice. The case also serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing need for vigilance, legal reform, and support for the survivors of sexual abuse. Gisele's strength and determination have brought international attention to the issue, and her fight has resonated with countless others.